Hello and welcome to Industry Spotlight with Creative First. Our guest today is Munjal Shroff, co-founder Graffiti Multimedia Private Limited. He's a producer and director with over 2 decades of experience across live action, animation, gaming, and VFX. Over the last 2 decades, he has produced over 500 brand communication films and television commercials. He has developed and produced India's first kids live action and 3D animation TV show, Jai Bole To Jadoo with Nickelodeon. He has promoted Indian folk art and folk series to children in India and across the world through his hit children movie series Krish, Trish and Balti Boy, which is on Cartoon Network, and Gubbare. He is also the creator of the animated series YOM for Disney Channel. Both YOM and Krish, Trish and Balti Boy have been released by Netflix in 150 countries in multiple languages. His latest creation is the Netflix original Deepa and Anoop, which has been produced by Mattel TV. The show won 4 Kids Screen Awards this year for Best New Show, Best Inclusivity, Best Music, and Best Voice Talent. He is also the creative producer of the official YouTube channel Yoga with Prime Minister Modi. He has been honored as the Toon Titan of Asia by Animation Magazine USA. Munjal serves as the co-chairman of the FICCI AVGC Forum in addition to being a member of FICCI's Media and Entertainment Committee. He is also on the advisory board for the Media and Entertainment Skill Council. He recently served on the Ministry of Information Broadcasting's task force on national animation, VFX, gaming, comic, and XR policy. Munjal, welcome to this discussion.
Hi, Loita. Thank you so much for having me.
Munjal, first of all, congratulations on bagging 4 wins at the 14th Annual Kids Screen Awards. Tell us a little bit more about Deepa and Anoop.
Okay. So I think Deepa and Anoop is, I think it's an amazing long journey on that show. Started years back when my co-creator, Lisa Goldman from New York, actually came down, to India. And at that point, we had just finished, or I think we were in production on our first show with Nickelodeon, Jai Bole To Jadoo. And obviously, having worked on that show and then, having been to a couple of markets, we were also looking at very seriously creating something for the international market as well. Because back in the day, the options of putting up a show on Indian kids broadcasting network were very limited, so probably in a year, maybe 1 or 2 shows would go, every channel would possibly invest in this one show. And also because we already worked a lot extensively in the international TV commercial space as well. So we had some idea of working with international markets and international brands as well. But the kids canvas was very different and exciting as well. And I think partly our journey kind of started into this whole kids space because in the early days, bulk of what we did were essentially 30-second commercials. If we got very lucky, a client would give us a minute and we would be very thrilled. And I think at some point we honestly felt very stifled that we can't flex our creative muscles beyond the 1-minute format, So that's when we decided that why not start looking at a longer format. And obviously, kids TV was an obvious choice, and we could, given the fact that animation VFX is such a strong part of our DNA, Graffiti's DNA. So with all of that, we said, let's start working on developing a show with Lisa, and I think something interesting that happened was back in the day, Times of India used to have a page 3 column, you might remember, which is where all the Bollywood celebrities would get featured and the parties would get featured. And I think Lisa found that very interesting, saying, hey, this is such a colorful world, and that's when we said that why not, take kids, or the international audience into this colorful world of Bollywood, And that was sort of the initial inspiration for the show. And obviously from there, as we started developing the show forward, we realized that, okay, we need to find a something much more relatable. And eventually we came up with the idea of, an Indian family settled in the US, running a bed and breakfast, a motel, and Deepa is a 6-year-old kid, and she has this adorable pink elephant who's a friend and part of the family. And the way Anup, the elephant, communicates with Deepa is by changing color, And obviously, these two characters are self-appointed concierges of fun and hospitality. And in their over enthusiasm, a lot of things end up going wrong in a funny way. And it's how they resolve things, And I think with that show, it also gave us an opportunity to introduce, global audiences to, certain aspects of Indian culture. And I think what we've managed to do very well is to strike that balance, not making it overtly Indian, and at the same time keeping it at that level where it's kind of intriguing for the audience to go and explore, or it's unique for them to go and explore.
Munjal, what is your take on production and tax incentives? Have there been any steps, and can we take any steps to make it more competitive?
Yeah, I think we are at a great point right now that what has happened is that I think one of the biggest challenges used to be the fact that while we had signed a lot of co-production treaties, the issue was that we didn't have the backing, corresponding benefits, production benefits, and by benefits, I mean co-production funding and as well as tax treaty, the tax cuts, right? So the tax rebates that you get. So if you look at two countries, Canada and France, right? They have between them the largest number of co-productions, particularly in the animation space. The reason being that both these countries, wholeheartedly support animation and kids content. So there's a lot of funding available. There are a lot of grants available. I mean, the initial years of the Canadian animation industry, the Central Board of Canada, I think NFB, National Film Board, they gave out grants to people to go ahead and just make animation films, Then they had a tax rebate. So whatever taxes which you were paying, you would get them back. So you are getting almost 20% back. So what is happening is that, for a Canadian producer, before he steps out of his own country, 30 to 40% of his budget is covered. He goes across and, joins hands with a French producer who also has similar matching, so they also have a tax refund, tax rebate available, and they have again matching funding available, right? As a result of which, between them, anywhere between 60 to 70, sometimes as 80%, because if they sometimes pull another third partner, they have 80% of the production budget covered. Right?
Fantastic.
So all they then need is one broadcaster to say yes, and the show gets produced, right? And once the show is produced, you know how it is, right? It's always easy to sell finished content, right? That's what happened. Now, I think our challenge was that while we had this co-production treaties, we never had the matching grants. So we were not a lucrative partner in any co-production scenario, because one of the critical things is that whatever money that you get, you are supposed to spend within your own country, right? So we didn't have that. I think fortunately now with the current ministry and the current team at the Ministry of I&B headed by Mr. Apurva Chandra, I think they have, with a single-minded focus, gone after this, and they've understood the problem. And I think as a result, there are multiple things that you're seeing. So I think one of the most progressive things that has happened, is the national AVGC policy, right? And within that, obviously, the co-production treaties are now getting action, right? So they are putting up, co-production funds, right? Which not only animation projects can tap, even VFX projects can tap, and obviously even feature film projects can tap, right? So I think you will now see a sea change, and I believe this will open the floodgates, because suddenly now, we have a seat at the global co-production table. Otherwise, we were not even a player. Unless the Indian studio was willing to put out the entire money, and saying, yeah, this is my investment, right? And for a lot of the players, there was a gap. The other thing also is what you have to realize is when you're doing television shows and particularly co-production deals, the third very important piece also is a local broadcaster, right? So what happens is that the Canadian producer typically would have the backing of their public broadcasting channels or even private channels. Or if you go to France, for example, TV France, would wholeheartedly support their productions. So by default, when it's a co-production project, they're getting funding, they're getting tax rebates, and they have a broadcaster backing them, right? So what happens is that the French partner comes in with all three aspects, right? The Canadian partner is coming in with a broadcaster in tow as well. I think that's the piece that we are still missing in India. And it's
Yes.
also, and I think one of the reasons also is that we don't have a public kids broadcaster today. Something that, I have proposed more than 10 years back, that we don't have a DD kids. And I think we need that to complete that puzzle, that piece. So then we have all three, for the lack of a better word, qualifiers, right? You have and look at the audience that we have. I think one of the unique things is the power of the sheer numbers that we have, right? So, when you go into a market and if you say that here's a show that has been watched by 40 million kids, you can't beat that.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, for most parts, that will probably be the viewership of entire Europe. So I think that is a game changer. Definitely, I think this government is taking steps in the right direction, and I think honestly extremely heartened to see the pace at which the ministry is moving.
Absolutely.
That in the last 15 years.
As part of your AVGC policy initiatives, what are your thoughts on adopting new technologies? I mean, these technologies are being talked about, right, from AR, VR to metaverse to, we're seeing AI and all of that. So what is your take on building that, as part of the policy?
See, I think, technology adoption is a constant in our business. I think when I started my career, it was largely 2D. 3D was just on the horizon, right? And graffiti was one of the pioneers in that space. We back in the day, there was no access to all the world-class software, right? So we wrote our own software. I think that's one of the unique things about Graffiti as a studio, that we had our own proprietary tools. We had our own proprietary compositing system, right? Interestingly, we were Renderman, which is the rendering software from Pixar. I think we were Renderman's first customer in Asia. So I think Graffiti as a studio, originally started way back in 1985. And I think as a company and as a professional in this space, I think now I've been almost 27 years in the business. I've seen platforms come and go, right? There's a major shift that I saw in my career from 2D to 3D. And I would say in some manner, sort of, again, people still 2D, while 2D has not died, right? It's changed. Like the classical 2D, I would say, is unfortunately pretty much dead, right? All of it has become Flash.
Yes.
As much as, I am not happy about that, because I have seen the beauty of, drawings, right? And I think I still find that soulfulness is missing when you look at something like Flash animation. But I think 3D as a medium has done phenomenally well. I think look at where 3D technology has gone, right? I mean, if you look at what's happening with Unreal, and the whole virtual production, right? You can be in a studio floor and you can shoot on the Eiffel Tower, you can shoot on at Taj Mahal, and you can be in Morocco, and you can be in Gobi Desert, all in days work, right? That's the power that technology brings in. So there's undeniable. I think you do not have a choice but to adopt it, right? And I think I think the next wave of companies are the companies which are going to be able to adopt it faster, right? So there's no question of, not adopting it. And I think one of the things that personally has always excited me about filmmaking and media, is the sheer pace of technology, right? Every day you get up, there's something new, right? And I think AI is again, I think, an incredibly powerful tool, and it's truly going to disrupt many things. I think we've not completely come to grasp as to what it is capable of, But if you just look at what's happening in the last year and a half, kind of imagery that is being put out by even people who are not experienced, using Chat GPT or
Yes.
Stable Diffusion and all these AI engines. It's just remarkable, right? So I think it's more power to content creators.
That's great. And from a workforce perspective, what has the policy envisaged? Trained workforce, knowing the latest technologies.
Great question. See, I think our vision is that currently we are at about 2 lakh, people at this point. The idea is to touch 20 lakhs. Because I think
20 lakhs by in the next
2030.
Right.
So obviously you're talking about a 10x growth.
Yes.
Over the next, I would say I'm saying if you give it a 10-year horizon, that's serious growth, right? So you're going to require talent, right? Which is one of the reasons why, even if you see as part of the National AVGC policy and the push, we are looking at the National Center of Excellence as well for animation, visual effects, and gaming, right? So that's finally come to fruition, and we're looking at not just one, but maybe one main center plus 4 cluster centers as well, and hopefully down the line there'll be more. So I think to a degree that will address a lot of the challenges that we are seeing.
Right.
Also, I think organization like MESC, Media and Entertainment Skill Council, where I have been serving on the board and now currently on the advisory board. I think what we've tried to do is we've tried to bring structure, we've tried to bring standardization, in the courses, in the curriculum, so we've defined what we call as national occupation standards, right? So what it means that when you say you are a junior animator, what are the qualifying skills, right? And let's say you want to move from a junior animator to a senior animator to an animation director, right? So what are the qualifying courses that you need to take, or what we call as qualifying packs? So from a junior animator to, let's say, a senior animator, maybe you need 3 qualifying courses. And then from that senior animator to go to an animation director, you need maybe 5 or 6 more courses, right? So we are structuring education in a manner that at a certain level it's modular, also at a certain level it's standardized, so that no matter what university you go to, there's a standardized curriculum. So it helps us to build a workforce which is standardized, which understands, speaks the same language, and hopefully exposed to the same kind of technology, and with that, I think you will be able to leverage, because look at where we are today, right? If you look at our share of the global business, we are below 2%. So look at the potential for growth. It's humongous, right? So I think, so hence upskilling is needed. I think even people today who are in the business, right, they need to be upskilled, right? How do you work with AI technologies? How do you work with VPS, right? How do you work with technologies like Unreal and Unity Engine and all of that, right? How do you leverage these, right? So I think it's going to require upskilling for a lot of people, acquiring new skills, and staying at I think one of the key things in this business is staying at the cutting edge of technology and technology evolution. That's vital.
I'd like to ask you a very pertinent question. You're looking at a growth from 2 lakh workforce to 20 lakhs. You're looking at upskilling. You're also, India is a hotbed for new technologies. I think we're also a mobile first nation. What are the triggers to get more investment into this industry? One, and what do you think should change for people to look at this space as a serious career option?
Okay, so 2 parts. One, I would say the way we position India, okay, in the global market, I think that needs to change. One of the things that I had proposed when I was serving on the committee is the brand Create in India, right? And I'm saying that's the under that brand, we need to basically under that banner is where all our pavilions, our booths at all markets should be put up. So there's a unified branding across whether it's films, whether it's animation, whether it's VFX, whether it's game, right? I think so that one consistent message goes out that come and create in India, come and create with India. I think, and that works at multiple levels, right? It works when people come to India and shoot, for our locations. I think one other, I would say, extremely undermarketed area is also the film services. Uh, uh, while we've done, I think we've done a lot of work in Hollywood, but I think we need to do a better job of marketing ourselves in Europe, because there are a lot of films that happen, and I think particularly for tier 2 VFX companies, I think that's a great opportunity to go out there. Again, DI, I think we have top talent today, not just in VFX, but in DI, in sound design, and music, all of these. So I think the whole gamut of services in films can be offered. And I think I would say so far we've not done a great job at marketing there. So I think some work needs to be done there. And I think as all of this work comes in, and as I mentioned earlier, that even if you have to move the needle and go from 2% to 5% of a multi-billion-dollar global pie that is there, you're going to need people. You're going to need serious amount of people. So as a career opportunity, I believe it's a fantastic time to be in this space. In my career of so many years, I think we will be seeing an explosion. I think we will need good talent, and I think it's going to be tough. Literally, we'll have to come up with new models of training people fast and at a world-class level. So clearly, and I think across the board, I think animation, VFX, gaming, I think, if you look at even animation, I think what's happening is, honestly, it's been extremely gratifying, and honestly humbling as well to see the acceptance of Deepa and Anoop at a global level, right? To win 4 awards, at an event like Kids Screen, at such a prestigious thing, I think it's a big win for the industry. The fact that a show which has been created by an Indian and has found resonance, in the global market on a platform like Netflix with a partner like Mattel, I think it's just amazing. I think this is a great testament of what India has to offer. Similarly, I think Chhota Bheem, Mighty Little Bheem, the show that's doing so well on Netflix. It's a global success, right? So so you're now seeing that Indian IPs or shows which have been created with India or with Indian creators are finding a global audience, are resonating with that audience. And I think India is rising very clear. People are seeking out Indian content. People do want to know about India. They want to travel to India. You and me both were at the film tourism event. Exciting. Just seeing the kind of innovations that are happening, right? So I think these are very good markers of the sheer potential that our industry has. So I would say I'm extremely excited. I think next 10 years, it's going to be a fantastic ride for the industry.
Over the last 2 decades, how has storytelling evolved in the industry?
I think more and more what we are seeing is that Indian shows are becoming more desi, and as a result, they are unique to our market. And if you see most shows which are possibly in India or do extremely well on Indian broadcasters, do not necessarily end up, on European or American broadcasters. They at best find the distribution or able to post syndication deals in I would say Asia at best. Very rarely would a European broadcaster pick it up, because the big difference is that most shows in India are very, very culturally steeped. And I think there's a rather, I would say, over kind of reliance on Bollywood. I think what has happened, that by virtue of the fact that one show in Bollywood has worked, then everyone wants to go the Bollywood way. We did the first show in 2004, which was Jo Bole To Jadoo, where we licensed the character Jadoo from the blockbuster Koi Mil Gaya, Bollywood blockbuster. And our reasons were very different back then, because there was a very interesting article that I read where Jadoo as a character, was actually more popular among kids than even Hrithik. And I said, hey, this is an interesting fact, and that's when we kind of said, why not, come up with a show around this character, but there were other parts to the show. There were other aspects. Now, I think the trend is literally a successful Bollywood movie, and we want to just pick it up and create, spin-offs from that, literally. So whether it's a Little Singam or Fukre Boys, or so many of them, so I feel that at a certain level, I think creativity is getting a little limited. As creators, I think that canvas is shrinking, right? Whereas when you develop shows for the international market, it's a whole different ballgame. I think part of the reason why Deepa and Anu has done so well, and the fact that it's won so many awards, is the fact that it's unique, right? It's different from what's out there. It's visually different. It's culturally different. It has great music, again, which is very Bollywood inspired. Daniel Ingram, who's the music producer, did an amazing job. But again, when I was working with him, a lot of my references to him, I literally created a playlist of 30 songs for him from Bollywood, and said, you know what, you need to listen to this first, right? So I think there's a big difference between when you create shows in India and when you create shows for the global. When you create a show for the global market, you have to be at a certain level, be careful that the show has to appeal to a kid in New York, has to appeal to a kid in Toronto, to a kid in Paris, to a kid in Torino, or in Sydney, So you need to ensure that it works across geographies, because that's when you are able to tap into a global audience. Whereas here, when you create in India, you're catering to a very, very specific market.
Has led to the popularity of, I would say something that's very cultural, very Japan. One, what has led to the popularity? And two, do we really have something like this in India, which is unexplored?
So, I would say, I think one is what we need to understand about manga is the whole comic culture of Japan, right? I think, I've often said this, that Japan is a different universe when it comes to the whole medium of animation. Culturally, it's very, very unique market. You will find not only kids but adults also read comics. I have, when I've traveled on the train in Tokyo, I've seen even adults reading comics. So they are reading comics. So it's very normal for them. So for them, it's like reading any magazine, right? So it's so steeped in their culture, right? So they're very, very open to watching anime, shows as well, reading manga, all of that, and from a very young age. So what you'll also find, that you will find a very diverse genre. So you would have, comics for younger audiences, for teenagers, and even older audiences. Now that's a very evolved market, right? When you have segmentation in comics, right? Which at least I have not seen in any other market internationally.
But at the same time, there's a lot of investment in that form of animation by, studios for their.
So what they do is they typically, most successful titles or bigger titles release a manga or a comic every week, right? And what they look at is that out of, let's say in a year they've released 52, they would look at the circulation numbers, that which are the ones which have been most successful, right? And those are the ones which then go into an animated series. Now these are nuances that again, like I said, that it's a very very precise, almost a science. You would say, like, look at what they're doing, right? They're already looking at what has worked for the audiences. So in a way, it's almost like soft launching a product, testing out a market, if this has worked. And again, it's cheap to, relatively cheap to, put out a comic as opposed to putting out an animation show, So that, I think, is unique about Japan. Now, I think what is unique about India is the amazing visual tapestry of folk arts of India, right? So in India, as per our research, there are about 40 different cultural zones, and every zone has its own art form, way of storytelling, which is unique, which you would find, you look at something like Madhubani, to something like Rajasthani Mughal miniature, to the Thanka in the Buddhist monasteries, to leather puppets of Andhra and Karnataka, to Ferd of Rajasthan, to Warli paintings of Maharashtra, or Chitrakathi. They're all so different, right? So we have an amazing visual tapestry. I think that's something that has always excited me about India. And even when I was creating Deepa and Anu, a lot of my designs were influenced by that somewhere, subconsciously. So I think that's an untapped area which I feel that I believe all creators should tap into, And we've tried to do that with our series Krish, Trish and Balti Boy. Here are these three characters. Krish is a monkey, Trish is a cat, and Balti Boy is a donkey. These three guys are the storytellers that take kids on a journey across India, right? And what they would do is that they would pick up a state of India. They would pick up the art form of that state, even the story. Most of the stories that we have told in Krish, Trish and Balti Boy are folk stories, which probably you would have never heard of or you would have never read about, because these are stories unique to that state. The other two interesting things that we did is that we also, the way Hindi is spoken, right, the language is different for every state. So we also picked that up, right, so that kids get a sense of how different our country or how diverse our country is. And then the last piece was the music. So again, a lot of the Krish, Trish Balti Boy movies use unique musical instruments. So for example, if you go to Tamil Nadu, you'll find Nadswaram, which is a very unique instrument. Obviously, if you go to Punjab, very, very Nagara is a very, very identifiable instrument in Bhangra or whatever, any kind of a celebration that you see in Punjab, Tashas, again, in Maharashtra, if you look at, So we also wanted to pick up these signature sounds, right, from every state. You many times, I think, as Indians, when we hear a piece of music, typically we can instinctively say, yeah, this is from north of India, this is from south of India, or this is from Bengal, So we wanted to bring all of that and package that as a unique experience for children, And what happened is that obviously when we went and started speaking to broadcasters, our challenge was that broadcasters didn't get it. They said, hey, you are literally changing the visual style. Not only visual style, you're also changing the spoken word, right? The way Hindi is spoken and music. So it's too much for the child to process, And I said, look, I don't agree. I think kids are a lot smarter and they're far more receptive to new ideas. And interestingly, what happened is that we met Nafisa Ali, who was then the chairperson of Children's Film Society of India. And, we were at a party and we were talking to her about it. And she loved the idea. She said, oh, hey, you should pitch this to us, and she said, look, we don't have a lot of money, but, we would love to do something like this. And by then we had done a fair amount of research. We had written stories, and we really wanted to do this experiment of sorts, I said, let's actually go ahead and do it, just for the sheer love of it, I think, and we dived in, we grabbed that opportunity and we pitched it to them. Their committee approved it and we did the first film. And the response was phenomenal. I think across the board, I think one of the great things with Children's Film Society of India is that they go to the least common denominator. They go to smaller schools, smaller towns. They do festivals for, in remote parts of India as well. And they got an overwhelming response to this film. Kids just loved it to bits, And when we saw that feedback, we felt redeemed. Said, hey, great, we know this works. So, and after that, we approached Cartoon Network and said, hey, why did you look at this? And they saw it. And I still remember Krishna Desai, next morning, 8:30 in the morning, he calls me saying, hey, man, this is stunning. And, but he says, you know what, I'm not sure if this is going to rate. So I told KD, I said, why not, we can debate this, or we can just put the content on air and let's go from there. And he took a huge, bet and said, done. He says that for the sheer, brilliance of it, I want to put it up, So he put it up and it rated like crazy. It matched the ratings of Chhota Bheem movies, and
that's great.
Yeah, so, and then they renewed the deal a couple of times, and after the third renewal, the team came back, the Cartoon Network team came back and said, you know what, I think we should do more of this. So then we did 3 more, and then subsequently we did 3 more. And then obviously eventually it also went on to Netflix. So Netflix released it in 150 countries. And again, interestingly, originally released only in English and Hindi. But they came back, they're such a data-driven company saying, oh, we're seeing traction in other markets as well. So we would want, additional rights. So we want to subtitle it in Turkish, Polish, traditional Chinese, simplified Chinese, and Korean. I was like, wow, I mean, you're getting traction in these markets. That's very interesting. So I think that, to kind of circle back to your original question, that while this is my belief, that while Japan has manga, I believe India has the rich tapestry of Indian folk art. And I think it's an amazingly rich world, and every state has some beautiful stories. I mean, over the last 10, 12 years, we've been consistently researching in that space. And, I'm honestly blown. I think the diversity that we have in our country and the kind of material we have, it's just immense. I mean, one lifetime is not enough to, do justice to the material.
What's next for Graffiti, and what are the projects in the pipeline that we should look forward to?
So yeah, I think, where we are right now, on Deepa and Anoop, hopefully we are hoping there'll be another season soon, fingers crossed. But I think closer home, we are doing a very, very exciting project, something again that I think is very close to my heart. It's a series called Krishish Balti Boy Bharat Hai Hum, and it's a fascinating project. And what we are doing is we are producing 52 episodes of 11 minutes each. And each episode will feature the story of an Indian freedom fighter or a hero, and these are stories covering our Indian freedom struggle starting from 1550 till 1947. So each
fantastic,
one unique hero, which probably kids would not have heard about. They've been missed by our history books. History is not done justice to them, but they are great stories of valor, sacrifice, bravery, amazing. I mean, what struck me when we were doing research and when I read these stories now is the amount of sacrifice. People bet their lives, their careers, their wealth, for a larger cause, and also at that point of time, India as a nation, as we understand it today, didn't exist. We were still broken up, right? But I think people fought for a certain value system. They knew that this is wrong, and they chose to stand up and fight against it. And people from all walks of life. I mean, we have, tribal leaders like Tilka Manjhi, right, who was a headman of a tribal village, right, to Rani Abbakka, which is our very first episode. She fought the Portuguese in 1550. and 3 generations. I mean, her mother fought, Rani Abakka fought, and after her, also 2 of her daughters fought, right? I mean, before Rani Lakshmi Bai, we have Rani Velu Nachiyar, Rani Channamma, right? I think what's amazed me is that that women were at the forefront of this struggle as well, and I think many times we ignore their role and their contributions. And also the other thing is that every part of the country contributed. Like literally in my research, we have a dedicated research team which is headed by a very senior professor of history in Delhi. We found that people from all walks of life and all parts of the country have contributed. So also what we've tried to do is that, pick up stories from every different state of India. Like Northeast, I feel that we know very little about Northeast contribution to the Indian freedom struggle, but there are some amazing stories. Tikender Jeet Singh. So that's the new show that we are working on. And we are very, very fortunate to have Ministry of Information and Broadcasting as our partner. So it's a joint venture that we're doing. So we are basically producing it with them. They are our co-production partners. So Central Bureau of Communication is the body with whom we are working with very closely. And we are planning to launch this on 15th August. Can't find a better day than that to launch a show like this. So very excited about the show. It's been a humbling experience. I think I've learned a lot. I think my team has learned a lot about our history. And I think we are hoping that through this show, not just kids, but I believe even parents. I think this is a great show for even parents. I'm sure parents will also enjoy this show, because
and this would be on the national platform.
This will definitely be on Doordarshan for sure. We are in talks with various OTT partners and broadcasters as well. I can't share details because of active negotiations, but I think we're looking at some very good partners coming on board.
Thank you so much, Munjal, for this wonderful discussion. And I can't wait for 15th August to watch what you have next in the pipeline.
Thank you so much. This has been fun. Yes.
Munjal, before you launch